All right, welcome in week 2 recap. And we got newcomer Anthony Martucci here. Me and him are pretty familiar with doing some radio shows in the past. We, four-time best all-around show for WJMF Radio, the Monday wrap up. So I'd say
That's
we got
right.
some experience, right? We got to dust off
Yeah,
the rust a little bit, but I think we'll be
I,
okay.
I think we got it. I did win DJ of the year, which it's not like I was DJing anything, but they basically called me like host
Yep.
of the year.
Yep. So Anthony, one of the two newcomers to the league this year, as we expanded to 12. So excited to have you on to talk about this. We've done these recaps for a little bit now, and they started out as me sitting down and writing basically an essay on Microsoft Word and sending it to everybody in the NFL
Yeah,
fantasy chat, and it turned into videos, and now here we are. And for everybody, I know last week I mentioned, oh, maybe we'll do a couple throughout the year, maybe not every week. But it was just so exciting. We wanted to get into it. Martucci was excited to get on here. He saw it, the recap. He's like, this is awesome. Let's get on, have me on next week. So we were too excited. So we're giving you another one. And for right now, I'm just going to say we got some big things in store. We got some big plans coming for this recap. And so stay tuned for that. But hopefully you guys will get it more often, maybe even every single week. We'll see.
yeah. This is a lot of fun. This league is a lot of fun, I must say. You know,
Mhm.
just comparing it to other leagues, like I'm in like other leagues where like trades don't happen.
Right.
People like, and if they do, they want an arm. Like they're not doing a trade unless they're completely winning it.
Oh, we
And
definitely have some of that.
You do, but it's at least like there's some movement there. Like,
Right.
there's a lot of there's moving parts in this league, whereas not as much in other leagues. So I'm
Yeah.
enjoying it.
Yep.
Wish I
Good.
had a better record, but we'll get into that, I'm
Yep.
sure.
Yep, we will. So let's get into the matchups then from last week. We're going to start with yours since you're on today. Anthony Martucci going up against Sean when we had the two newcomers of the league, and we had a 125 to 113 win for the High Rollers Tendies. And we're gonna try this out, showing sleeper up on the screen too. This was Anthony's idea right before the show, and it's genius. So this is just one of the few big things we've got coming for the recap. So yeah, take me through your matchup and your win. You only got the one win, right? You did not get the median, but you
No.
got the win over Sean. So 1-1 in the week.
Yeah, good to get a win after starting 0-2. Lamar, both quarterbacks in this matchup weren't phenomenal for what they can do. Like Lamar, 18 points is all right, but that guy could score a ton. I needed to make a trade for a quarterback because if you see on my bench here, if I scroll down, Dak Prescott, I didn't love that pick when I made it, and so I just don't think he fantasy wise this year is going to be super reliable. But Jared Goff only scoring 8 points, right? Tough day against Tampa. Two picks, no touchdowns. 3 to 7 yards, but really couldn't get it going. I thought maybe in the beginning of the week when James Cook had his day, I was like, this matchup is not going to go well for me. But you know, some solid performances by CeeDee Lamb, Brian Robinson had over 133 yards. The problem with Brian Robinson as a fantasy guy is he's not going to get PPRs,
Right.
and I worry about Jaden Daniels taking touchdowns from him in the red zone. I,
Yep.
but my running backs are my strong suit with Gibbs and Hall. Obviously, that trade for Achan, where I traded Achan and Nico Collins for Lamar, Brees Hall, and then Puka was more of a long term role for me because I think when Puka comes back, we're going to see some, that would be a huge benefit for me to get a
Yep.
quarterback and those two guys. But in the meantime, right, it's finding a guy to start for me is kind of tough in those wide receiver positions.
Yep.
So, and Nico obviously went off. So
Yep.
that made me feel,
Yep.
feel good. But overall, kind of low scoring. DeAndre Hopkins, I mean, that dude's doing nothing right now. I bet you that after this week, Sean benches him, I would
Yep.
think, right?
Yeah, it's been a tough start for him. And I mean, when you have two games back to back with, one catch for 8 yards and one catch for 9 yards, to know that that's in the round. I'm sure like Hopkins is going to have big games, but knowing that that's a possibility for him to get you nothing is going to be tough.
Well,
And
you have guys like most recently, like Gabe Davis last year, where like he could go off one week, right? but then he get you 0 points the next. And like those guys, like I hated having them on my team, right? If you had them on your team, because like consistency is a huge part of fantasy that I try and build teams around, or I try and think about, because the boomer bust guys can really drive you nuts, right?
Yep.
And if you make the playoffs, you need consistent guys to score for 3 weeks. So
Yeah. I mean, I know for your team, you'll be looking forward to getting Puka down the line, but just
yeah,
knowing that for a while, especially in a double flex, going Najee, who's been, not great so far, Shakir, it's like you got some of these guys where obviously you got Brees Hall and Jahmyr Gibbs, and even Lamar Jackson like can go off and win you the week at any given moment. But those the flex spots are definitely seem like your weakest link right now.
yeah, they are. They are. I mean, looking at my bench, it's Douglas. I mean, I think he's going to get more involved this week. I mean, as a fantasy option, he's kind of irrelevant right now, but like from a Patriots perspective, you got to get him involved in the offense. I feel like they're going to try and force him the ball almost this week now because of what happened. Um, but even looking at Sean's team, like Kincaid's a guy that I think is going to get on. Like it's going to like I'm not down on Kincaid yet. Like I'm not selling at all. I think he's going to continue to build his relationship with Josh Allen this year.
Yeah.
And I think by the end of the year, you're going to feel good about Kincaid as a tight end.
Yeah.
In the beginning of the year, I thought Kincaid would be a top 5 tight end. And right now, he's not really showing it, but I think he's going to get the opportunities to be that.
Yeah, but that's the way everybody's felt with their tight ends. Anybody that drafted a tight end at the top of the draft is feeling that way right now. I'm feeling it with Mark Andrews, and he hasn't even, he scored more points than some of the other top tight ends. So unless you drafted Brock Bowers, you're feeling it.
Yeah, if you drafted Brock Bowers, you're feeling great. But and that's the thing with tight end. It's a tough position in fantasy.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yep. We thought it was going to be better this year, but I mean, even with Kyle Pitts, it's been, he got a touchdown in week 1, but yeah, you're going to need to see a little bit more from Kirk Cousins looking like him old self in order to feel good about Pitts.
Yeah, you would, and I think you see some good things with Pitts. I feel like they're targeting him more, and they're getting him involved. And I think once Kirk Cousins settles in and the offense starts rolling, Pitts could be a big play. But he's also a guy that you don't know what you're going to get from him every week, I feel like. So
Right.
It's gonna be interesting. So.
Yep. All right, on to the next matchup. We're going to go over to mine, and I beat Andre 156 to 113. Did not quite get the weekly prize. I thought I had a shot at that until Zach came along on Monday, but I was really led by my top 4 guys. Kyler had a huge game. Devontae Adams with 26, and then both my flexes, Malik Neighbors and Calvin Ridley. Those 4 guys carried me to victory. I got a lot of other small performances, but Tyreek Hill started me off on Thursday. Wasn't a great start points-wise for me. I thought it was going to be a low-scoring matchup between me and Andre after the Thursday game where I only get 6 from Tyreek. He obviously loses his quarterback, which is not – I mean, Tyreek Hill I think is going to be good no matter what, but that doesn't help him. And
No.
But the positive part of that Thursday night game was that Andre started about the worst case scenario for him. Josh Allen with 11, and then he had Keon Coleman and the Dolphins defense with 2 goose eggs. So he had 3 players, including Josh Allen, combining for 11 points on Thursday. So it was definitely a win for me overall, even though Tyreek Hill only had 6. But I was expecting to come into like a 90 to 85 type game. But yeah, Kyler and Devontae, Neighbors, and Ridley really saved me.
Yeah, I got to say, Andre scoring 113 after that Thursday start is actually kind of impressive.
It is.
And this matchup obviously wasn't close. Your guys went off. I think your receivers are pretty stacked this year. Obviously that second running back position could be an issue down the line. Maybe Dowdle gets involved more and he becomes a guy you can start every week. But your receivers are pretty loaded.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of went hodgepodge of different RB2s that like I don't really have one of them. It's kind of playing matchups, and it's the hero RB strategy. It's the kind of the first time I've really gone all in on that. And obviously Tyreek was my first pick, but that's why I wanted to grab a Josh Jacobs that I knew was going to get a lot of touches for Green Bay, especially once all the other guys gone down. Marshawn Lloyd's on IR now for them. Dylan was out for the year, so I knew that he was going to be the only guy getting touches, and it showed this week with 32 carries for 151 yards, which is wild that he only got 13 points out of that. No catches at all, no touchdowns, and he fumbled, but 151 yards on 32 carries.
He's touched in both games. I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
That could something to watch for. He's going to get a touchdown. In fact, you want a prop this week to bet on. I kind of like Josh Jacobs anytime touchdown. I feel like they're going to get him the ball in the red zone. 33 carries is a lot. I know you are.
He's not going to last all season doing that, but.
No, I mean, I want to talk about Kyler because Kyler was a guy I loved going into the season. In fact, I was going to take him, but I think you took him right before I was. Number 4 QB right now. Kind of early to talk about that with only 2 weeks in, but the potential that he has this year is off the chains. With that offense.
Yep.
In fact, even the Cardinals in general, I think, are going to be a team that's going to. I think the Cardinals could make the playoffs this year. I think they're going to be a frisky team that's going to be in like.
They look good.
I mean, they look
41-10 win.
They look good against Buffalo, and Buffalo's look great, and so in Buffalo. So I think they're a team that's, going to be tough to beat this year.
And that was with the Rams not even being able to keep up with them. So like Kyler basically had that performance in the first half and then didn't have to do anything.
Yeah. What a guy like Tank Dell? How do you feel about him after two games, right? Obviously that offense has a lot of receivers, Stephon Diggs, Nico Collins, and Tank Dell. Like, it's hard to get the ball to everyone. Would you be concerned about having him?
If I'm Andre and he's on my team, then yes, I would be concerned.
I'm not playing him, I guess.
I love Tank Dell. He was one of my favorite picks going into the year, and it's been 2 disappointing games. I really think that Nico's their guy. I think he's just going to be the most consistent. And between Dell and Diggs, it's going to be tough for both of them to have good games consistently. So I just think both of those guys are just going to be back and forth and just inconsistent. But the ceiling is so when Dell has good games, Dell's going to win Andre weeks. So I think he's just got to keep rolling him out there. I just think he's going to have some gigantic weeks for Dre and in those same weeks, Diggs isn't going to do anything.
You're right. And I think it's funny, like when you look at his team, right? He's starting J.K. Dobbins and Brock Bowers, probably 2 guys he got later in the draft, right? Yeah. Definitely J.K. Dobbins, right? And they're making huge impacts on his team.
Yeah.
And guy like Tank, we probably took a lot earlier, right? Is struggling. You just don't know how it's going to come from.
Yeah.
I think Jonathan Taylor gets it going. He hasn't scored yet, right? This year.
No.
He's got 1 touchdown.
And they didn't even play him in the 4th quarter.
No. So
no idea what happened there.
I don't know. 12 carries for. I wasn't watching this game really, but 12 carries for 103 yards.
Yeah.
Like, that's kind of crazy. That's a lot. And they're not running him more. I don't know what happened.
Yeah.
So
hopefully there's no injury there. But for Dre, speaking of injuries, because I think that's the kind of the thing at the top that we should have mentioned, just for every team right now. So many, I feel like half of the picks in the first 4 rounds are injured. For Andre, it's Debo that went down. Debo had a great game for him. He had 18 points. And that was despite 2 carries for negative 10 yards. But then he left with an injury, so he is most likely going to be without Debo for at least a couple weeks now and have to fill that gap. Now he's already without AJ Brown, who he didn't have for this game. So that is a tough blow for Andre, who is the defending champ. If there's anyone that's going to find some gems in the waiver wire and off of his bench, it's going to be Andre. I think he'll figure it out, but it is going to be tough.
Shaheed.
Yeah,
he's got Shaheed, who's been great
for him now.
Of course, I bet you when he starts him, puts up a goose egg or something like that. Like, that's one of those guys that's on your bench that like goes off for 2 weeks, and then you put him in and he does nothing.
Yeah.
Soon as you, but who knows? They like throwing to him. I mean, he's got some good options in there. So I mean, he's 2-2, so he's had an okay start so far. You're 4-0. Good for you, I guess.
Yep. Only 4-0 team right now, so we'll try to hang on. Going to the next matchup, we have the weekly prize winner of the week was Zach. Team Zach T40 with the 167-141 win over Jake. This was the highest scoring game of the week. Jake was able to still come away with the median, even though he lost pretty big. So he at least went 1-1 on the week, and Zach got the 2-0 win after an 0-2 start from week 1. So Zach has the most points in the league right now out of anybody, and he's still sitting in 5th place at 2-2. So that one's tough. He just barely missed the median last week. So even though he went 0-2, he scored about as many points as you could while going 0-2. So Zach's in a good position. I mean, he put up 167 with Anthony Richardson only getting 11. Not a good game for him. But pretty much everybody else in his lineup, he didn't get much from Brandon Cooks, but he made up for it with his kicker getting 22. So, and then pretty much everybody else in his lineup was going off, and it started on Thursday night with Achan.
Yeah, you're welcome for Achan, by the way, Zach, and Nico Collins. If
Yeah.
I had both guys on my team, I know I made that deal thinking more long term, but if I had both those guys on my team, I would have probably beaten the median last week and got 2 wins. But yeah, but just both their quarterbacks not really playing well. Mahomes, I don't know what's going on with him to start the year. He has 3 picks, right? So he's not playing too well. And I feel like his offense is probably better off this year than it was last year.
Yeah.
I think he has more weapons. But a really good game. Obviously, Jake getting unlucky playing Zach this week, but still, getting that point for the league median. And Jackson Smith-Njigba, a guy I was super high on to start the year. Unfortunately, he did it against the Pats, but he had a big game this week, 12 receptions. I mean, that's a lot. Him and DK both went off. So
that's going to be huge for Jake, who I know was big on JSN. I know he was from all of his requests from Dynasty, wanting to get him from my terrible team, but he is starting him in redraft. And credit to Jake there for still starting JSN despite a rough start.
I do credit him on that. That's a smart move. I mean, who would he start him over? I guess, some guys on his bench. I guess Lazard had a big week 1. Maybe you might consider him.
So I think he didn't really have many other options, honestly.
No, I was just looking. I didn't want to say that out loud, but not many other options. It's maybe not as big a kudos. Does he like Javonte Williams a lot?
I think he's a big Javonte guy. I've always been a big Javonte guy too, and it's unfortunate to see the way he's looked. It's just that knee injury was so devastating, and I was hopeful.
That Broncos offense is terrible.
It's also more devastating, but it was tough to see just where I was hoping for Javonte like a couple of years off of that injury. Now that he'd start to look, because I think the thing that's going to be forgotten about him is that his rookie year, he didn't get a lot of touches, right? If you remember, he split with Melvin Gordon, and Melvin Gordon got more touches, even though he wasn't as good. Javonte led the league, because I drafted him this next year on the basis of this stat. He led the league in broken tackles his rookie year, and he had the second place was Jonathan Taylor, who literally had like 4 times more touches than him. So Javonte just is impossible to break down, to bring down, and it seems like that explosiveness is gone since his injury.
Yeah. I mean, he's a guy I always believed in. I took him in our other dynasty league with, mainly this group. I took him. I remember the first pick. I think I picked 7 or 8 or something like that. And I took him, and I was feeling really good about that. And he just, hasn't panned out. I think he got hurt that year.
Yep.
So that wasn't great for me, but, really both these teams are pretty good. Unfortunate Jake is 1-3 right now. But Garrett Wilson's a guy I think that starts to really pick up too. So, and Laporta also is a guy that hasn't really had a great start, but I think he's going to also start to pick it up.
Yeah. I think these are 2 very dangerous teams, and don't get fooled by their records. I think that Zach and Jake are going to be two very dangerous teams, as you've seen. Like you mentioned, Mahomes, Garrett Wilson, Laporta. Some of these guys have really underperformed, and Jake still put up a really good week.
Absolutely.
On to the next matchup. We got you got anything else you want to add on that one?
No, I'm just looking at these teams. I'm starting to realize my team is not. Maybe I need. I don't like the flex spots compared to everyone else. So
I need to reevaluate some things. Doing the recap.
I need Puka back quick.
Yes, you do. We're gonna go to Hilsch and Kyle. Ryan put up 155 in his match against Kyle to get the big win. Ryan moves to 3-1, and one of the better starts he's had in quite a while. And it was a big week for Ryan, who had to start Baker Mayfield and lost Jordan Love after week 1, which was upsetting, especially after how good Love looked for him in week 1. But Baker came in and did exactly what he needed to do for someone that he picked up off the waivers. And Justin Jefferson with what is currently the best play of the year with that unbelievable 97-yard touchdown. And we all shit on Ryan a lot during the draft about taking so many Vikings players, and Sam Darnold looks competent, and the Vikings don't look too bad.
No, the Vikings look way better than I thought they would. Sam Darnold, and that's a trend you're kind of seeing with the league right now with guys like Baker, right? He's got Baker on his team too. Similar thing. They start off on these bad teams. They don't look as good. They get cut, and they kind of revitalize their career. And it's interesting to kind of have that debate. Like, hey, was it the team, or is the system they're in, the team they're in, or is it them? And it seems to be that a lot of it's the system and team when you start out. Like, Bryce Young might be unhelpable. He's so bad, right? Like he might be the exception.
Yeah.
But the Panthers are terrible. Like they're not doing that guy any favors. And like you look at the rookie quarterbacks right now, like Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels, right? Bo Nix, they're all not playing great to start the season, and they're not in good positions, right? That's a big factor. And so I think like these reclamation projects are kind of interesting to see. Baker Mayfield, I was looking at the stats here. The big thing for him, it's not like he threw the ball over the yard that day. He only had 185 to 1 touchdown, 1 interception, but he was able to run in for a score, had 34 yards rushing. So, that definitely saved him in that matchup. And Aaron Jones has looked a lot better than I thought he would. Again, only 9 points, but still like, he had 18 the first week. So, he's looking pretty decent as a fantasy option.
Yeah, and I mean,
RB2.
speaking of old running backs, James Connors looked like one of the best picks in the draft for him too. 19 both of the first 2 weeks. He was RB8 and RB7 this week, and these were all big picks for Ryan. I mean, he took the most shit during the entire draft, and because that's just the way it is in this league,
we make he's easy to shit on though.
Yeah, it's the way.
Like it's easy to shit on.
So this is something that you figure out after 15 years of this league, is that this league is built on making fun of Ryan no matter what he does, even if he makes good decisions. So that's what we did. And he right now he's in third place. He's 3-1. He's looking pretty good. So he's got every reason to be talking back to us now.
Yeah, James Conner's a steady. Like he just is consistent. He's just so consistent fantasy wise. And they took a guy like Trey Benson, I believe, in the 3rd round out of Florida State, who I love. But like, Trey Benson's not going to see the field if James Conner stays this consistent. Like, you know what I mean? Like he's just, so he's still a good fantasy option. So, Ryan's team is obviously doing pretty good so far to start the season. And, we totally ignored Kyle here.
Yeah, I mean, for Kyle, it was tough week. 115, which in our double flex now, not very much, and falls to 2-2 on the week. Stroud, obviously, from where he drafted him, 16 is not going to cut it for him. And just overall, Jamar Chase has been extremely disappointing for him. And that's kind of been, I think, the biggest thing holding him back.
That's another guy.
He had some decent performances, but Chase is that's killing him.
That's another guy I love this week to score a touchdown. If you want another prop bet from Anthony, which you probably shouldn't follow my bets because my record is not that great, but that's a guy I love to score this week to finally get in the end zone. And Chase kind of did it to himself. This is when you don't go to training camp, when you don't acclimate yourself to the team. I know he's so talented. But like there's rust in there, right? You're seeing it with Brandon Ayuk too, right? And so I think like he needed a couple weeks under his belt, and I think he's going to start to get going. Washington's secondary is pretty abysmal, so he should pick them apart next week. I kind of like his matchup next week. I wouldn't be surprised if he scores 30 fantasy points next week and has a monster game. So
Kyle's a big locker room guy though, and he's not been liking Jamar's attitude in the locker room lately.
If you want to trade me Jamar, let's talk. I would love that man. So
put him on the trade block right away when he saw him complaining about the hip drop tackle and got his team a penalty. He did not like that at all. Kyle's a big morale guy.
I offered him a trade for him, but I don't know if he even saw it. So we can talk, but
we'll see whose team he's on for your prediction of a 30-point performance next week. So Kyle falls to 2-2. He's in 6th place. Ryan up in 3rd at 3-1 as there's only one more matchup this year with 12 teams, but it feels like way more. We still got 2 matchups to go. So we'll go through them quickly because I want to talk about the closest matchup of the week, Sam versus Noah. Sam squeaks out a 138-135 win in what was an extremely exciting match. And I mean, we saw some big numbers this week, but this one was by far the closest, and Sam got it done on the Monday night game.
Yeah, they both had Eagle players going into the final. Oh, and Koo, I didn't realize he had Koo. So I think what lost in this game for Noah was I think Dallas Goedert, who I was kind of big on going into the week. I thought he was gonna, with AJ Brown absent, have like a pretty big week, at least 5 receptions. I thought he might get a score. kind of didn't do much, right? 3 receptions for 38 yards. And one of those was right at the end of the game, right? Where I
Yeah.
think he got like 15 yards. So most of that game, he did nothing.
Yep.
And Saquon, you know, it's kind of funny. I wonder if Saquon, if he didn't drop that pass, if he would have scored and
And
made
that
this.
would have been the game. I mean, even if he didn't score, Noah only lost by 3. If he catches a ball for 15, 20, like 20 yards, which, he's got a chance there all the way at the end.
So actually, when you think about it, if he catches that ball, it gets 2 points, and who doesn't then get a chance to? Then the Vikings, the Falcons don't score,
Yeah.
so he doesn't get the extra point. Yeah, I think he wins.
That's
if he
the
catches
difference in
that
the
pass.
game.
That's crazy. That's crazy.
They did both get the median, so they both did enough on Monday night that Noah did go 1-1 on the week at least, which is what's keeping him up in second place. The loss in this matchup to Sam is Noah's only loss on the season so far. He's 3-1. And Sam obviously went 2-0. He's in 3-1 in fourth place based on points. But I think the big thing for Noah right now, because he'll piece it together. Noah, more than anybody in this league, will end up with a completely different roster than he drafted. Loves to trade, but Alvin Kamara looks like the best pick of the entire draft right now. 44 points for Alvin Kamara this week.
I wouldn't have predicted this. This is a guy like, I mean, 29 years old at a running back. You just don't see it happen. Like, you usually see a big fall off, but he looks great. I mean, he looks phenomenal. And I thought I saw some stat is Alvin Kamara has the most number one running back finishes in fantasy football of all time, and I think it's by like three or four. Like, he has 3 or 4 more than the next guy, who I think was LT, LaDainian Tomlinson, and Christian McCaffrey. I think were tied at 7, and he has like 10 or something like that. So he's had a great fantasy career, Alvin Kamara, and he just keeps it going.
Fantasy legend, as Drew knows well. He won Drew that championship the year that he scored 6 touchdowns on Christmas. And then for Sam, Amon-Ra had a bounce back week with 22. It was a solid week for him. It's going to be tough for him to lose Cooper Kupp. You talk about the injuries in Cooper Kupp. That's going to be a huge one for him. So, Sam's going to have to figure out who he's going to start. He's got a pretty deep team, I think, but he had some underwhelming performances, but he made good decisions with, not playing Swift on his bench, not playing Lockett, Zach Moss, but he's got some options, but obviously it's tough to replace.
Who would you start? Sorry to cut you off. Who would you start in that flex over Kupp gone? I think it's to me, it's Zach Moss or Lockett.
It's going to be matchup dependent, I think, for him. It's going to come down to if he starts the right guys.
I would pick Zach Moss just against Washington. I think they're going to be up big and run the ball.
Yep.
But it is a discussion. It's interesting to see. I mean, even Chuba, I guess, he's the starting running back with Andy Dalton. Does that offense now start getting going? And does he get more opportunity? So he's got to, let's see who he picks. That'd be interesting.
Yeah. Some decisions to be made for Sam. And then as we go to the last matchup of the week, it was the lowest scoring of the league. And this is pretty remarkable stuff here from Drew that we're going to talk about. But Chris 122, Drew 64. That was the next lowest point total was what? Sean at 113. That's what it looks like. Chris didn't score very many. Chris was lucky to play against Drew this week, but Drew had a pretty solid showing against me in week 1. And this was, Chris almost doubled him, and he had barely scored any points. This was just as bad of a week as it could get for Drew, who his kicker, Evan McPherson, was his leading scorer almost by double. Terry McLaurin was the next highest with 8, and his kicker had 15. Every single other person on his team in single digits.
That's actually want to throw up looking at this. This is gross. That's just disgusting. Yeah, no, look, like Diggs had a huge week 1, right? Like he was a guy that scored 21 fantasy points week 1, and then Jaden Reed's another guy that had 33. So
then lost Jordan Love.
Yeah, what a huge difference one week to the next for Drew. That's a and Caleb, who's his quarterback on the bench that he's starting? Does he have a second quarterback?
He's just got Caleb Williams. So
Caleb Williams been a huge disappointment so far. So
Yeah, from league history. Now, mind you, Drew's a two-time champion of this league, so you can't say too many bad things, but he doesn't love to look at the waiver wire. I don't think he used a single dollar of fab last year, and tends to not really look at his team until noon on Sunday. So we're gonna see if he's gonna stick with Caleb Williams all year, because it's pretty thin on the waiver wire right now.
Yeah, and Rashad White's another guy that hasn't really. I mean, 16 points actually week one. I didn't realize he had that good of a week one, but
Yeah,
uh, luckily he's got the handicap in Bucky Irving. I was looking at look like who's
Drew's a big
steadily.
handcuff guy.
Yeah, I think it's
Let me
smart.
tell you, because you haven't been in the league before, but Drew went with the mega handcuff last year of three Bears running backs. So he's a big handcuff guy.
I did that in another league. I took Achan and I was like, I took Mostert and Wright to
Yeah.
handcuff them. I
Yep.
still have them just in case.
So hopefully Drew can bounce back. And for Chris, he gets the win this week, goes 1-1, but he loses Tua, he loses Pacheco. A couple big hits for him there. He just picked up Derek Carr to play against me this week, and Derek Carr's been great for so far, but losing Pacheco, I think, is going to be huge for Chris.
Yeah, he's got to find a guy. Got to find a guy to take his place on his bench, and it's looking like he's got Benson's a guy that's not going to probably come on until later on in the year. So he's got between Elliott and Algier right now. Not great options for Chris.
Not great, but so we're running out of time. I'm going to figure out a better way to make Zoom work because it's about to cut us off. So thank you for joining this week, and we're going to have a lot of good things coming. Hopefully, we're going to probably get Martucci back on here and then add maybe a third guest. So yeah, thanks for listening to the recap, and thanks for joining. We'll see you again soon.
Thanks, guys.
All right.